We pick up right where we left off last time as Starscream stumbles upon Optimus and is ready to blast him. Since he's Orion Pax now, Orion has no idea why he'd want to do that, or why I would address him as if he was a Prime either. I mean, how would you react if someone you thought was dead walked in and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Your Holiness"? Of course, actually being a Prime is not the only thing that Orion is ignorant of.
You do not suggest that our leader would speak falsehoods.
I can't imagine that reaction is reassuring. After the titles, Orion tries to ask about things, and Starscream starts it off with, "Well, what'll I get out of it?" but has no time because the minions have found him and he has to amscray. Meanwhile, Ratchet and Raphael are testing to see how his ground bridge tinkering has been going.
Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
No, Raphael. It was pure folly. A misguided act of desperation.
But enough about Rise of the Fallen. Let's get back to the ground bridge. Raphael tries to inspire by mentioning that he needs to climb the rope in gym class, and Bumblebee's support led him to keep at it until he managed to get all the way to the top. And upon hearing that, there's only one thing Ratchet can say.
What does any of this have to do with gym class?
This is one of those rare times where I'm wondering if they had to cut around the swearing. Anyway, while we leave this in his grumpy hands, we check in on Megatron's latest spin doctoring. Well, Starscream wasn't literally dead, he's just dead to me. He's dead to the cause, anyway. Orion seems to accept this, but the thing to note is that Orion is naive, not stupid. These little things are adding up in his mind, and eventually he's going to finally start to realize what's happening. I think Megatron suspects the same thing, but it's not as if there's anything he can really do about it. It's not like he can flush Orion's mind a second time. There are all a lot of matrices of leadership. Back at Autobot HQ, Bulkhead returns with no leads on where the space bridge or Optimus might be, but that's when they pick up a strange transmission from Starscream. He says he wants to trade information for medical treatment, but that Ratchet must come alone. Oh, we really need that information, but what if this is all just a trap? If Ratchet goes there, he could be captured then. How do we find a way to get the answers without Ratchet being exposed to danger?
I told you to come alone!
All right, by remembering that when someone's in no position to dictate terms, you can do whatever the hell you want. Starscream says Optimus is fine on Megatron's ship, but he doesn't know where that is because being a ship, it moves around. And his news on Orion Pax, thinking that he's a Decepticon and all that, is just old news. So, unless he knows where the space bridge is, Starscream is useless to them and he can just sit there and leak.
It hurts most right here, Doctor.
The space bridge is underground, next to a source of energon for power. So they know what to do, it's just a question of whether Jack's mom is going to let him go to the dead robot planet with likely a poisonous atmosphere. But RC believes in Jack, and so does Ratchet, that like Orion Pax, there is in him a possibility of being so much more. Speaking of Orion, he's acting on the incongruity. The Optimus Prime that Starscream mentioned, the fact that Optimus is supposed to be the Autobot leader, except Megatron said that was actually Ratchet. Megatron's own files say that Ratchet isn't the leader, though. So, which is correct? Can Ratchet really be the leader? It doesn't seem like Ratchet's the leader. Anyway, Ratchet's preparing to lead the Autobots into battle.
And if Ratchet gets to go on a commando raid, I'm going to.
Miko, you will help Raphael operate our ground bridge and manage the communications hub.
Can go to Cybertron, can't storm the Decepticon space bridge.
He's a dictator, isn't he? So they ground bridge into the cave, all four of them, but it's not enough to beat up all the mooks before one gets a message off about the attack. Pity for that dipstick that Ratchet was jamming transmissions to make sure that couldn't happen. And good thing, too, because they might just have time to get off a message otherwise. After taking them down, they now have control of a fully functional space bridge. So Ratchet drops the jammer and calls the base to send Jack through. After a heroic goodbye, Jack and his NASA spacesuit head through the ground bridge, where Ratchet explains the next problem. They can now get to Cybertron, but there's no clue where Vector Sigma actually is. The hope is that maybe the key will somehow point the way to them. Otherwise, this is going to probably take a bit longer than we actually have. I mean, personally, I would call off any mission that said Step 2 is Find Atlantis. It's a grim moment returning to Cybertron like this, but there's no time to dwell on robotic Armageddon. Fortunately, the key glows when pointed in the right direction, so they take off. But there's a problem. Breakdown on Megatron's ship calls up demanding the overdue status report, which wasn't given because broken minions have little to say. Well, the trio of Autobots can't very well answer. Their voices will be recognized. But there's no way the Decepticons have ever seen Ghostbusters, so Agent Fowler can answer.
We had a surge, but it's fine now. How are you?
Playing it cool like Han Solo doesn't mean you should actually act like Han Solo. Meanwhile, Orion has finished cracking the encryption and learns the shocking truth. He's the leader of the Autobots. Somehow, he's become a Prime, standing in the company of the greats like Sentinel Prime, Rodimus Prime, Amazon Prime. As you can imagine, Orion learning his true identity annoys Megatron to no end. Here he's been, putting on a masterful performance as the noble oppressed hero, when he could have just been punching a minion and the results would have been the same. As for the team on Cybertron, the key has led them to the Decepticon capital. It would have to, wouldn't it? And hiding underneath the bridge they need to cross to get there, something is still alive. And it's very big, and seems very determined to catch them. What will happen? We'll find out in 2 weeks when we close out our look at Transformers Prime with the final chapter of Orion Pax.